Forgetting, is our greatest weakness actually our greatest blessing? In today's world, where everything is recorded and documented, from our personal moments on social media to the vast amount of information on the internet, memory and remembering seem to hold an unparalleled value. We constantly strive not to forget anything: our loved ones' birthdays, academic concepts, or even our account passwords. But what if I told you that forgetting, this seemingly undesirable phenomenon, might be one of the most powerful and essential abilities of our mind? Throughout history and across various cultures, forgetting has often been viewed as a flaw, a weakness, or even a sign of decline. But is that the whole truth? Is the ability to erase certain data, set aside some memories, or let go of certain experiences not a survival tool that allows us to move on with life, grow, and even be creative? In this video series, we intend to embark on a deep journey into the philosophy of oblivion, a journey that takes us from the chambers of the mind to the stages of history, from individual psychology to collective evolution. Is forgetting merely a mental error, or an existential and evolutionary necessity without which neither individuals could find peace nor societies could move past painful histories? Join us to find the answers to these questions. In the upcoming parts, we will delve into various perspectives on oblivion, from modern psychology to existential philosophy and even historical viewpoints, to uncover the mystery of this complex phenomenon. Are you ready to redefine the concept of forgetting? The traps of forgetting. Why do we fear not remembering? In the previous section, we asked whether forgetting, this seemingly undesirable phenomenon, could actually be a hidden blessing. But before we delve into the positive aspects of oblivion, it's essential to confront the prevailing and powerful view of it: forgetting as a flaw, a weakness, or even a serious threat to our existence. From early childhood, memory has held a special place in our upbringing and education. We are encouraged to memorize lessons, remember tasks, and recall our experiences. A strong mind is defined as one with a superior memory. A student who forgets, an employee who doesn't recall, and an individual who loses track of dates and names are often labeled as weak or inefficient. This perspective extends to the point where, in modern societies, the emergence of diseases like Alzheimer's and dementia is considered a universal nightmare. The thought of losing memories means losing parts of ourselves, an identity intricately woven by the threads of recollection. From an individual perspective, forgetting an important appointment, a work task, or even an anniversary can have severe consequences. These occurrences not only lead to discomfort and frustration, but can also harm our personal and professional relationships. On a larger scale, the collective forgetting by a nation of significant historical events can lead to the repetition of past mistakes. Historians and sociologists have repeatedly warned that those who forget history are condemned to repeat it. Here, oblivion is not just an individual weakness, but a social and existential danger. Indeed, this fear of forgetting is so deeply rooted that we are constantly inventing new tools and methods for remembering, from notebooks and digital calendars to advanced data storage technologies and even memory-enhancing drugs and supplements. We are in a continuous battle against oblivion, and any retreat in this battle is considered a defeat. But is this the complete picture? Is forgetting merely an enemy to be fought? In the next section, we will challenge this perspective and explore other aspects of forgetting that have received less attention: oblivion as a necessary and even liberating force. The grace of forgetting, how letting go makes life possible. In the previous section, we saw how our society and culture largely perceive forgetting as a flaw or a threat. But is that the whole story? Let's now look at oblivion from a different angle: forgetting not as an enemy, but as an essential ally, a vital mechanism for human survival, mental well-being, and even flourishing. Imagine if every memory, every experience, every conversation, every pain, every mistake remained in our minds with perfect clarity forever. What would life be like? Many psychologists and philosophers believe that without the ability to forget, our minds would quickly collapse under the heavy burden of information, especially painful experiences. Oblivion, in this sense, is a form of mental pruning. Just as a gardener prunes dry and excess branches to strengthen a tree, our minds also prune certain memories to create space for new information, greater flexibility, and more importantly, psychological reconstruction and healing. This brings us to the role of oblivion in mental health. The ability for bitter memories, insults, failures, and sufferings to fade or become less vivid is a crucial mechanism for moving past them. Forgiving others and even forgiving ourselves is often accompanied by letting go of the burden of negative memories. Without this capability, we would be trapped in an endless cycle of pain and regret. This is what some philosophers and psychoanalysts have pointed to. To move forward, sometimes one must distance oneself from the past. But the benefits of oblivion extend beyond psychotherapy. Forgetting can be the key to creativity and innovation. Imagine if our minds were simply flawless archives, retaining all past knowledge and assumptions without any alteration. Would new ideas ever emerge? Could science and art transcend existing frameworks? Sometimes forgetting old ways and established thought patterns creates space for fresh perspectives, novel solutions, and creative leaps. This doesn't mean ignoring knowledge, but rather not being enslaved by it. Even from a biological and evolutionary standpoint, forgetting is necessary. Our brains are confronted with an infinite volume of information. If they were to retain every single detail, their efficiency would drastically decrease. Studies show that the brain actively prunes unnecessary or less significant information. This process, sometimes called synaptic pruning, allows the brain to direct its resources towards more vital information and more efficient patterns. Therefore, oblivion is not merely a weakness, but an adaptive power that enables us to live in a complex and sometimes painful world, to learn, to innovate, and to move forward. In the next section, we will take this concept to larger social and historical dimensions, exploring how forgetting, on a collective scale, can influence the identities and trajectories of nations. Collective forgetting. Do nations also need oblivion to survive? So far, we've explored the role of forgetting at the individual level and its necessity for mental well-being and creativity. But does this concept also apply on a larger scale within the fabric of history and society? Do nations and civilizations, like individuals, require a form of collective oblivion to survive, grow, and overcome crises? At first glance, history teaches us that remembering past events, learning from mistakes, and honoring heroes are crucial for shaping national identity and societal progress. Museums, memorials, history books, and national narratives all emphasize the importance of collective memory. But if history were nothing but a perpetual accumulation of all events, from the bitterest crimes to the sweetest victories, could any society bear the heavy burden of such absolute memory? This is where the concept of active forgetting, not in the sense of denying or distorting history, but as the ability to let go of certain wounds or redefine past narratives to move forward, becomes significant. While it is true that painful past events must be learned from and remembered to prevent their repetition, an eternal clinging to every wound or grudge can hinder reconciliation, coexistence, and future building. Sometimes, societies need to release the burden of hatred and vengeance to transition from dark eras, a need that is only possible through the capacity for forgiveness and a form of forgetting. This oblivion is more akin to healing from a wound than erasing the scar. On the other hand, collective forgetting can also occur in undesirable and even dangerous ways. When a society consciously or unconsciously ignores or allows parts of its history to be forgotten, the risk of repeating those mistakes increases. Thus, the line between necessary forgetting for healing and dangerous forgetting that leads to ignorance is very thin. The question is, what should be remembered and what should be let go of? And who determines this boundary? This aspect of the philosophy of oblivion shows us that memory and forgetting are two sides of a coin that intricately influence the formation of individual and collective identities. In the concluding section, we will arrive at a final conclusion and reflection on the dual nature of oblivion, inviting you to rethink your own relationship with forgetting. Ancient wisdom, new insights. What do philosophers say? So far, we have explored the individual and societal dimensions of oblivion. However, to deeply understand this phenomenon, it is essential to turn to thinkers who have contemplated the complexities of memory and forgetting for centuries. Philosophers from early on have viewed oblivion not merely as a deficiency, but as an active and meaningful part of the human experience. One of the most prominent philosophers who addressed the power and function of forgetting is Friedrich Nietzsche. In his works, particularly in On the Genealogy of Morality, Nietzsche introduces the concept of the power to forget, or active forgetting. He believed that for humans to liberate themselves from the heavy burden of the past, painful memories, grudges, and negative emotions, and to transform into dynamic beings capable of creating new values, they desperately need this ability. For Nietzsche, memory is a tool for enduring promises and responsibilities, but forgetting is a tool for life, for liberation from yesterday's burdens, and for moving forward towards today and tomorrow. A mind incapable of forgetting is condemned to perpetual rumination of the past and an inability to create a fresh future. He somewhat interprets forgetting as a form of mental hygiene essential for the health and dynamism of the soul. On the other side of this spectrum, the contemporary French philosopher Paul Ricoeur, in his monumental work Memory, History, Forgetting, undertakes a deep and nuanced exploration of these three concepts. Ricoeur acknowledges the importance of healing forgetting, or forgetting that aids in overcoming pain and fostering forgiveness. He accepts that for individuals and societies to break free from endless cycles of revenge and suffering, they need a form of oblivion. This type of forgetting is constructive, allowing bitter memories to fade so that healing can occur and life can move on. However, Ricoeur expresses deep concern about the danger of commanded forgetting. This type of oblivion is no longer a choice or a natural process. Instead, it comprises actions undertaken by political or ideological powers with the aim of suppressing or distorting parts of history and collective memory. When a government attempts to erase unpleasant events, war crimes, or dark eras from public memory, or replaces truth with false narratives, this constitutes a forced and dangerous forgetting. Ricoeur emphasizes that such forgetting, instead of healing, leads to denial and concealment, hindering the learning of historical lessons and the establishment of justice. He stresses the importance of the duty to remember, even when remembering is painful, to prevent the repetition of catastrophes and ensure that truth is not trampled. The balance between this duty and the need to let go of wounds is the greatest challenge facing individuals and society. Indirectly, the work of Michel Foucault can also be mentioned. Although Foucault does not directly focus on forgetting, his theories on how knowledge and power are formed throughout history demonstrate how certain voices, narratives, and bodies of knowledge are marginalized and effectively consigned to oblivion, while dominant narratives gain power. This can be a form of unintentional but structured forgetting, resulting from the mechanisms of power within society. These philosophers teach us that forgetting is not a one-dimensional concept. Rather, it is a complex force with profound ethical, psychological, and social dimensions. In the concluding section, we will bring together these perspectives and invite a more comprehensive reflection on our relationship with memory and oblivion. Freedom in letting go, rethinking the power of oblivion. Throughout this intellectual journey, we delved into the depths of forgetting, a phenomenon that at first glance seemed merely a weakness, but concealed surprising dimensions of power and necessity. From the nightmare of losing memories and the fear of identity erosion in the first section, we arrived at the vital role of oblivion in individual mental health, liberation from the heavy burden of the past, and opening pathways for creativity in the middle sections. We also address the question of how nations, too, sometimes need a form of active forgetting for healing and moving forward, although the line between it and historical denial is very subtle and dangerous. This discussion reveals that memory and forgetting are two sides of the same coin, not rivals, but inseparable partners in the complex dance of human existence. Memory grants us identity, preserves lessons, and firmly anchors our roots in the past. But forgetting is equally vital. This power allows us to release ourselves from pain and unfinished projects, create new mental space for growth and learning, and ultimately move towards an open and adaptable future. Ultimately, the philosophy of oblivion invites us to a profound rethinking. Should we remember at all costs, or should we learn to intelligently let go of certain things? In a world where every moment is recorded and nostalgia for the past engulfs us, perhaps our greatest freedom lies in the ability to choose what we remember and what we let go of. Forgetting is not an enemy, but a guide that reminds us life is in motion, and sometimes to move forward, we must lighten the load of the past. This phenomenon, at its best, is an opportunity for rebirth, liberation from shackles, and finding profound peace in the present moment. By understanding these complexities, perhaps we can approach forgetting with greater reconciliation, a phenomenon that may be less celebrated, but is equally instrumental in shaping who we are and who we can become.